You ever notice how a house doesn't collapse all at once? It creaks first, tiny cracks appear, the paint peels, and before you know it, the foundation gives way. Relationships are no different, whether it's with your mom, dad, brother, sister, best friend, or the love of your life. They don't explode overnight, they erode in silence. Look, I've seen young folks fight for love while slowly killing respect in family arguments that go too far. I've watched trust rot under smiles that hide disappointment, like when a sibling keeps secrets or a friend ghosts you. And I've lived long enough to know when one of those three falls, the others don't stand for long. I know this hurts, especially when you're young and figuring it out, because sometimes it's not betrayal that breaks you, it's neglect. It's the slow fading of what once felt unshakable, like drifting apart from parents or letting resentment build with a partner. But here's the thing, if you understand this truth early, you can rebuild stronger. You can stop confusing comfort for connection in your daily hangs or family dinners. You can protect what truly matters before it's too late. Speaking up with respect even in tough talks, being honest to rebuild trust, and showing love through actions, not just words. Because real love isn't fragile, it's forged and sacred, and the fire that keeps it alive, respect, trust, and love, must be guarded, fed, and honored in every bond you cherish, or it fades quietly until all that's left is memory. So start today, young ones, nurture these pillars, spot the cracks early, and build relationships that last a lifetime. Respect, the word sounds simple, doesn't it? But in truth, it's the quietest, deepest force that holds every bond together. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand attention. It simply is. Like the ground beneath a great tree, invisible most of the time, yet carrying the entire weight of its life. Love may light the sky. Trust may hold the walls steady. But respect is the foundation. Without it, everything beautiful you've built, every shared laugh, every promise, every tender word, begins to sink into the soil. Think about it. You can love someone deeply and still lose them, not because the love disappeared, but because respect slowly faded away. It happens quietly. A tone too sharp during an argument, a careless dismissal of their feelings, a joke that cuts deeper than you intended, a habit of speaking at someone instead of with them. Every small act of disrespect is like pulling one brick out of a sacred structure. One day, it all gives way, and you wonder why something so strong collapsed without warning. See, respect isn't just about politeness. It's not about saying please and thank you. It's about recognition, recognizing the humanity, the dignity, and the worth in another's soul. It's the quiet decision to treat someone as an equal even when emotion tempts you to overpower them. It's choosing restraint when anger flares, patience when pride wants revenge, humility when ego screams for dominance. And that's not weakness. That's mastery. That's power under control. I've seen people destroy relationships not because they stopped loving, but because they stopped respecting. They began to speak in ways that bruise the spirit, words that humiliate, gestures that belittle, actions that say, I matter more. And here's the truth. Once you strip away someone's sense of being valued, you plant the seed of distance. You may still hold them, but their soul has already stepped back. Respect is also self-discipline. It means not using someone's vulnerability against them, not weaponizing what they once confessed in trust, not punishing them for being human. It's how two people stay equal even when one of them stumbles. It's saying, I see your weakness, but I won't use it to win. You know what's ironic? Disrespect usually hides in the disguise of passion. Someone yells, throws harsh words, storms out, and they'll say, I did it because I care. No, that's not care. That's ego seeking control. Respect doesn't explode, it steadies. It reminds you to listen when you want to shout. It tells you that silence can heal what shouting destroys. In families, respect is what keeps generations from breaking. When a child listens, truly listens, to the wisdom of their parents, that's respect. When a parent allows a grown child to make their own choices without ridicule, that's respect. When siblings stop competing and start uplifting, that's respect. It's what keeps love from becoming entitlement. In friendships, it's what separates real connection from convenience. Because friends who respect each other don't vanish when life gets messy. They don't gossip about what you trusted them with. They don't measure your value by what you can give. They stay not out of obligation, but out of honor. And in love, real love, respect is the thread that keeps passion from tearing. It's not about worshiping someone. It's about valuing them as your equal. It's the small gestures, waiting for their thoughts before you decide, acknowledging their effort, defending them when they're not around. It's understanding that your partner's mind and dreams are not yours to control, but to protect. Denzel once said something that resonates deeply here. True strength is in gentleness. And that's exactly what respect feels like. Strength expressed through gentleness. When you respect someone, you give them space to breathe, to be imperfect, to grow. And that freedom builds trust. It tells the other person, you are safe here, you can be you. But the hardest respect of all is self-respect. Because when you don't respect yourself, you allow others to walk over your boundaries. You tolerate what hurts you, thinking that love means endurance. But love without self-respect isn't love, it's surrender. You cannot demand respect from others if you quietly refuse to give it to yourself. It begins with you. How you speak to yourself, how you carry yourself, how you decide what you will and will not accept. There's something sacred in people who hold respect like a daily prayer. They don't raise their voices often, but when they speak, their words carry weight. They don't chase attention, yet everyone feels their presence. Because respect radiates. It doesn't need to be announced. It's the invisible gravity that makes others feel seen, safe, and valued. And the truth is, once respect is gone, love becomes blind and trust becomes fragile. You can't truly love someone you secretly look down on. You can't fully trust someone who treats you like you're less. Respect is the silent agreement that keeps hearts equal and souls connected. It's not a rule, it's a rhythm. Every word, every gesture, every decision plays to it. And when two people move in that rhythm, they create harmony, a rare and lasting kind. So ask yourself, when you speak to the people you love, does your tone build or break? When you argue, do you aim to understand or to win? When someone makes a mistake, do you reach to punish or to protect? That's where the truth of your respect lies, not in your feelings, but in your choices. Respect isn't something you give once, it's something you practice daily, in how you listen, in how you apologize, in how you forgive. Because even forgiveness without respect turns hollow, a performance instead of healing. You see, real respect is quiet fire. It doesn't fade when emotions change. It's the decision to stay kind, even when you could be cruel. It's the ability to see the person beneath the mistake. It's strength disguised as softness. So hold on to that. Speak with it. Live by it. Because everything that lasts, friendship, love, family, unity, grows from this soil. Without respect, love is blind. Without respect, trust has no ground. But with respect, even pain can turn to wisdom and distance can turn to peace. Because respect is the silent foundation of everything we hold dear. Trust, it's the quiet bridge that connects two hearts across uncertainty. You can't see it, you can't touch it, but you can feel when it's strong, and you can feel when it breaks. It's invisible, yet everything depends on it. Because love without trust is just a beautiful cage, and respect without trust is just formality dressed as peace. Trust is the moment you close your eyes and lean back, believing someone will catch you. It's not built in grand gestures or poetic words. It's built in consistency, in showing up not once, but every time, in keeping your word when it's inconvenient, in being the same person behind closed doors that you are in the light. The strongest bridges aren't built overnight. They're built plank by plank, moment by moment. Each promise kept, each truth told, each hurt forgiven without being forgotten. That's how trust grows slowly, quietly, faithfully. But here's the truth most people don't want to face. Trust doesn't vanish in one explosion. It dies by erosion. A little lie here, a broken promise there, a text unanswered not because you're busy, but because you're avoiding honesty. An apology given, but never followed by change. Every time you choose convenience over truth, you chip away at that bridge. Until one day you look up and realize there's nothing left to cross. You can love someone and still not trust them. You can respect their abilities, their intelligence, even their pain. But if you can't trust their heart, the relationship becomes survival. You stop leaning in. You start walking on eggshells. You measure every word, every silence, every look, afraid the ground beneath you might give way again. That's not connection. That's anxiety disguised as loyalty. Trust is sacred because it demands vulnerability. To trust is to hand someone the power to hurt you and believe they won't. It's courage. It's the bravest thing we do in relationships. And that's why betrayal cuts so deep, because it doesn't just break the bridge. It questions your judgment, your intuition, your entire sense of emotional safety. When trust is strong, silence feels peaceful. When it's weak, silence feels dangerous. When it's whole, distance feels temporary. When it's broken, even closeness feels fake. That's the paradox of trust. You never realize how much it mattered until it's gone. In family, trust is the invisible thread that keeps hearts tethered despite time, distance, or disagreement. A father trusts his son to carry his name with honor. A mother trusts her child to remember her sacrifices. A sibling trusts another to protect their secret wounds. Break that, and it's not just disappointment, it's a fracture in the lineage of love itself. In friendship, trust is everything. It's why some people can sit in silence and still feel understood. Why you can tell a friend your darkest mistake and sleep peacefully, knowing it's safe in their heart. A real friend guards your name when you're not there to defend it. They don't trade your truth for attention. They don't use your weakness as their moment to shine. That's sacred loyalty, the kind that outlives distance, arguments, and time. And in love, trust is oxygen. Without it, even passion suffocates. You can't build a future with someone you keep doubting in the back of your mind. Love becomes interrogation instead of intimacy. Every text, every delay, every change of tone feels like proof of something sinister. You start living in your own fears, not in reality, because love can forgive mistakes, but it struggles to breathe under suspicion. The hardest part of trust isn't giving it, it's rebuilding it once it's gone, because you can't force someone to believe again. You can't demand trust through promises. You have to earn it, day after day, with actions that speak when words can't. It's showing patience when they flinch, gentleness when they doubt, transparency when they question. It's proving that you're safe again, not by being perfect, but by being consistent. You see, trust doesn't ask for perfection, it asks for truth. People can forgive your honesty long before they forgive your deception. Because honesty, even when painful, builds strength. Lies, even when sweet, breed weakness. It's better to bruise someone with truth than to poison them with comfort. When Denzel said, "Commitment is staying true to what you said you would do long after the mood you said it in has left you." That's the essence of trust. Because trust doesn't live in promises, it lives in proof. In doing the right thing when no one's watching, in standing by someone even when it's inconvenient, in keeping quiet about what was shared in confidence. It's character, not charm, that holds the bridge together. Sometimes trust demands distance. Sometimes it means walking away, not to punish, but to protect your peace. Because trust is not blind obedience, it's conscious surrender. It means knowing who deserves your vulnerability and who only mimics safety. You can forgive someone and still not trust them again. That's not bitterness, that's wisdom. You're allowed to rebuild, but you're not required to rebuild with the same people. And don't forget, trust isn't one way. If you demand it, you must give it. If you want to be believed, you must be believable. If you crave loyalty, you must be loyal when no one's looking. It's a reflection, not a transaction, because people don't trust what you say, they trust what your pattern reveals. In the end, trust is what makes love effortless. It's why some relationships feel light, because both people can finally exhale. There's no pretending, no paranoia, no performance. Just presence, just peace. Because when you trust, you stop guarding your heart and start sharing it. And when two people trust each other completely, truly, fully, something beautiful happens. They don't just connect, they merge. They start speaking without words, understanding without explanations. That's the kind of bond storms can't shake, because its foundation isn't fantasy, it's truth. But when that bridge breaks, don't rush to cross it again. Sometimes the lesson isn't to rebuild it the same way. It's to learn how not to let it crack so easily next time. Strengthen your boundaries. Honor your instincts. Value the bridges that held firm when others fell apart. So protect that invisible bridge. It's not just connection, it's communion. It's the quiet understanding that someone has your back, your truth, and your soul. And in a world full of masks, manipulation, and noise, that kind of trust isn't weakness, it's divine. Because in the end, respect may start the bond, love may decorate it beautifully, but trust is what lets you walk safely across it, again and again, without fear of falling. Love. It's the heartbeat of everything we build, everything we lose, everything we remember. People spend their lives chasing it, naming it, fighting for it, but very few ever understand it, because love isn't just a feeling, it's a living flame, and like any flame, it can warm or it can burn. It begins softly, a spark, a glance, a moment, a connection that pulls you closer without reason. It feels effortless, almost divine. But that's not love, that's ignition. Love, the real kind, begins after the fire starts, when you choose to keep it alive. And here's the truth: love, by itself, is not enough. Without respect, it turns into surrender. Without trust, it becomes survival. Love that stands alone consumes itself, because it tries to give what it doesn't have the strength to hold. That's why so many people confuse attachment for devotion. They think clinging harder will save what's already collapsing. But you can't heal something by suffocating it. Real love breathes, it gives space, it grows roots and wings at the same time. It says, I'm here, but I don't need to cage you to feel safe. When you love someone with respect, you don't love them for who you want them to be. You love them as they are. You honor their individuality, even when it challenges yours. You let them speak their truth, even when it contradicts yours. That's how love evolves from emotion to energy. It becomes freedom. And when you love with trust, something miraculous happens. You stop needing proof. You stop counting efforts. You start believing, not blindly, but wisely. You see love not as ownership, but as partnership. You understand that fidelity isn't just physical, it's emotional presence, spiritual loyalty, the willingness to stay transparent even when pride tempts you to hide. Love is the only fire that doesn't die when you give it away. It multiplies. Every act of patience, every sacrifice, every small kindness keeps it alive. But the tragedy is, people treat love like a seasonal flower instead of an eternal flame. They water it when it's blooming, but abandon it when it wilts. They chase the thrill of falling, but ignore the art of staying. Staying, that's where love proves itself. Not in the easy days, but in the ones that test your patience, your pride, your faith. Because real love isn't tested in comfort, it's tested in conflict. When you can look at someone through pain and still see their worth, that's love's highest form. Love without respect becomes surrender, the kind that breaks you silently. You start apologizing for existing, for needing, for feeling. You lower your voice, shrink your dreams, twist your truth just to keep the peace. That's not love. That's fear dressed as devotion. Love doesn't demand your silence, it deserves your honesty. It doesn't ask you to disappear, it asks you to grow. If someone truly loves you, they won't dim your light to protect their shadow. And love without trust, that's not love, that's survival. It turns every word into suspicion, every distance into betrayal. You start building emotional prisons, checking locks instead of holding hands. It's exhausting, isn't it? Trying to keep something alive that keeps wounding you. Love that constantly tests loyalty eventually loses tenderness. Because where there's no trust, love becomes a performance, rehearsed, repeated, empty. Real love doesn't monitor, it nurtures. It doesn't demand perfection. It embraces humanity. It sees your scars and says, you're still worthy. It listens when you can't explain your pain. It stays when the world gives up on you. And that's why love, in its truest form, is sacred, because it reflects the divine. It mirrors how God loves, unconditionally, but never blindly. Sometimes love hurts not because it's wrong, but because it's teaching you. It teaches patience when timing doesn't match your desire. It teaches humility when pride stands in the way of forgiveness. It teaches strength when you must let go of what you still want. The purpose of love isn't always to stay forever. Sometimes it's to reveal who you are beneath the noise. To show you that even after heartbreak, you can still be gentle, still be kind, still be capable of giving. And maybe that's the ultimate sign of maturity, to love without losing yourself, to pour deeply without drowning, to walk away without bitterness because you gave with purity. Love like that doesn't collapse when it ends. It becomes part of your soul, a lesson that softens you instead of hardening you. When you meet someone who loves like that, you'll know. They won't just speak love, they'll embody it. Their presence feels like calm weather after a storm. Their touch carries understanding, not control. Their silence feels safe, because real love doesn't shout. It breathes, it steadies, it heals. You'll find it in small things, a gentle check in when you're distant, a quiet patience when you're moody, a knowing look that says, I see you, I'm still here. That's the love that lasts, not the one that dazzles, but the one that endures. And remember this, love isn't something you find, it's something you create. Every day, through discipline, through empathy, through choice. The feelings will fluctuate, the flame will flicker. But those who keep tending it, who guard it from pride and neglect, they build something unbreakable. It's easy to say, I love you, when life is smooth. But say it when the world is falling apart, and mean it. That's sacred. Hold someone's hand not just when they're strong, but when they're breaking. That's what defines love. It's loyalty to imperfection. Love isn't just romance. It's the way a mother stays awake until her child comes home safe. The way a friend defends you when you're not there. The way you forgive someone who doesn't even know how to ask. The way you still believe in goodness after being hurt. All of it. That's love. And that's why it's the living flame, because it burns through darkness and still finds light. But never forget, even fire needs tending. If you stop feeding it with honesty, patience, and gratitude, it dims. If you smother it with control and jealousy, it suffocates. You must let it breathe, even when fear whispers that it might fade. Because real love doesn't need chains. It thrives on freedom and faith. So love fiercely, but love wisely. Love deeply, but love with dignity. Love bravely, but never blindly. Because love without the balance of respect and trust will always consume itself. But love built on both, that love doesn't just survive, it transcends. It becomes something eternal. A flame that doesn't burn out with time, but glows quietly in every memory, every prayer, every act of kindness that outlives the moment. That's what love truly is, not the fire that scorches, but the light that endures. Every relationship dies in silence before it dies in distance. That's the truth no one wants to admit. You don't lose people overnight. You lose them slowly, one unspoken feeling at a time. Honesty isn't just about telling the truth when asked. It's about having the courage to speak when your silence is killing something sacred. It's the breath that keeps love alive, the unseen oxygen that keeps two souls from suffocating in misunderstanding. Without honesty, even the most passionate bond will collapse under the weight of unspoken words. Honesty isn't always pretty. It's raw. It's uncomfortable. It exposes things you wish could stay hidden. But that's the price of keeping something real. Because when you care about someone deeply, you don't protect their feelings by lying. You protect their heart by being truthful. You speak even when your voice trembles. You confess even when your ego screams no. You let them see your flaws, your fears, your truth. Because love that survives dishonesty isn't love, it's performance. Think about how many connections die, not because of betrayal or abuse, but because people stop communicating what hurts them. They keep secrets. They avoid difficult conversations. They pretend everything is fine while resentment builds like smoke in a closed room. Silence becomes poison. Smiles become masks. And suddenly, the person you once shared everything with feels like a stranger sitting across the same table. Honesty is not a weapon, it's a bridge. It's the bridge that connects two realities, yours and theirs. It allows you to meet in the middle, to see the world through each other's eyes. When you say what you feel, when you express what you need, you're not starting a war. You're preventing one. You're saying, I care enough to tell you what's real before it becomes too late. That's not cruelty. That's love with integrity. But let's be clear, honesty isn't the same as brutal truth. Honesty without empathy is cruelty dressed as virtue. True honesty requires wisdom. It's knowing not only what to say, but how and when to say it. The truth should heal, not harm. It should illuminate, not humiliate. So when you speak, do it with compassion, not from the desire to prove you're right, but from the desire to protect what matters. Every time you choose honesty, you plant trust. And trust is the soil where all real love grows. Without it, you can have affection, attraction, even loyalty, but not peace. Because peace comes from knowing there's nothing left unspoken, nothing festering in the dark. It's knowing that even if it hurts, your truth will be received with understanding, not judgment. That's how two people become safe with each other, not through perfection, but through transparency. Honesty is also a mirror. It doesn't just reveal your partner, it reveals you. It forces you to face your own inconsistencies, your own fears, your own shadows. When you practice honesty, you're not only telling the truth to someone else, you're learning to live truthfully with yourself. That's why people fear it so much. It demands self-awareness. It strips away the illusions that comfort us. But once you embrace it, life becomes lighter, cleaner, freer. In a world that teaches us to curate our emotions, edit our truths, and filter our flaws, honesty becomes an act of rebellion. It's choosing authenticity over appearance. It's refusing to let fear dictate your connections. When you're honest, you invite depth. And depth is where real love begins. Superficial relationships thrive on charm and convenience. Honest ones survive storms. They bend, but they don't break. Sometimes honesty will cost you. You might lose people who prefer comfort over truth. You might upset those who wanted you to stay quiet. But what you gain is worth infinitely more: clarity, freedom, self-respect. The people who stay after hearing your truth are the ones meant to be in your life. The ones who leave were only loyal to your mask. Remember this: lies don't protect hearts, they delay heartbreaks. You can't build eternity on deception. Every unspoken truth becomes a ghost that haunts the relationship later. And the longer you hide it, the louder it returns. So choose the small pain of honesty over the deep wound of regret. There's a reason every great bond, whether in love, friendship, or family, breathes through communication. Words are the air that keeps it alive. Every time you share what's real, You allow understanding to flow. Every time you hold back, you suffocate it a little more. And one day, you'll wake up realizing the connection didn't die suddenly. It died from too many moments of silence. So, speak. Speak when it's messy. Speak when it's scary. Speak when your heart races and your mind warns you to stay quiet. Because silence might feel safer, but it kills what honesty could have saved. Be the one who brings truth to the table, gently, bravely, consistently. If someone truly loves you, they won't punish your honesty. They'll respect it. They'll listen even when it stings, because they value the real you more than the comfortable lie. And if they don't, then let them go. Never shrink your truth to keep temporary peace. Real peace comes only from alignment. When what you say, what you feel, and what you live are one and the same. In the end, honesty is love's highest form of respect. It says, you deserve the truth. It says, I trust you with my reality. It says, I choose depth over distance. And that, more than any gift, promise, or vow, is what keeps relationships breathing through time and storms. So guard honesty like oxygen. Breathe it into every conversation, because without it, even the strongest connection will suffocate. But with it, even the most fragile one can survive. Speak truth not to wound, but to protect. And never forget love dies in silence long before it dies in distance. Keep breathing honesty, and you'll keep it alive. It's not the grand gestures that sustain love, it's the quiet repetition of care. It's not the loud declarations that build trust. It's the steady rhythm of being there, again and again, especially when no one's watching. Consistency is the guardian of stability. It's what turns fleeting emotions into foundations, what transforms affection into security. In a world addicted to instant feelings, consistency is the rarest form of devotion. Every relationship begins with sparks, excitement, discovery, endless words. But what defines its fate isn't the fireworks of the beginning, it's the endurance of what follows. Can you still show up when the excitement fades? Can you still be kind on ordinary days? Can you still love when it's inconvenient? That's where consistency steps in, not as a performance, but as a promise. Love, friendship, loyalty, all of them are built on one truth. Words fade, actions remain. Anyone can make you feel special once. Consistency makes you feel safe forever. It's the difference between someone saying, I care, and someone proving it every single day. When a person chooses consistency, they're choosing responsibility. They're saying, you can count on me. Not sometimes, not when it's easy, but always. A consistency is not about perfection. It's about reliability. It's about showing up even when you're tired, staying present even when you're distracted, keeping your promises even when life tests you. Because when you fail to be consistent, you create confusion, and confusion kills trust. But when you stay steady, you create rhythm, and rhythm creates peace. In relationships, small things done repeatedly matter far more than big things done rarely. A message that says, I'm thinking of you. A gentle check-in. Listening without judgment. Being on time. Remembering what matters to the other person. These may seem simple, even mundane, but they are sacred rituals of connection. They remind the other person that your care isn't situational, it's structural. It's not just what you do when you feel like it, it's who you are. And that's the beauty of consistency. It builds identity. It's not just about what you give to others, but what it says about you. When you are consistent, You tell the world you can be trusted. You prove that your emotions are not driven by impulse, but by principle. You become someone others can lean on, not because you're flawless, but because you're faithful. But let's be honest, consistency is hard. It demands discipline in an age of distraction. It demands focus when emotions fluctuate. It asks you to keep choosing what's right, even when your mood says otherwise. It's not glamorous. It's repetitive. It's slow. And that's why most people fail at it. They want intensity, not integrity. But the truth is, intensity creates memories. Consistency builds legacies. Think of a strong tree. It doesn't grow because of one day of sunshine or rain. It grows because the seasons repeat. The roots deepen through routine nourishment. Relationships are the same. They need constant sunlight, small, steady acts of warmth. Miss enough of them, and the roots begin to dry. But feed them daily, and the bond becomes unbreakable. Consistency is also the twin of patience. It's believing that small, steady efforts will one day yield extraordinary results. You water the plant not because you see it growing every day, but because you trust it will. The same principle applies to people. You keep showing love, respect, and presence, even when results are invisible, because you know these gestures accumulate over time. And there's another truth. Consistency doesn't only build relationships, it builds self-respect. When you follow through, when you honor your word, you begin to trust yourself. You silence self-doubt because your actions prove your strength. You start to live in harmony with your values. And when you trust yourself, others feel it too. You radiate stability, and stability attracts peace. In love, consistency becomes a language. Every repeated action says, "You matter." Every routine gesture whispers, "You can rely on me." It's how people fall in love deeper, not faster. Because real love doesn't need to be constantly reignited. It burns quietly through the steady fuel of commitment. But let's not confuse consistency with control. Being consistent doesn't mean being rigid. Life changes, people grow, situations evolve. Consistency doesn't demand perfection, it demands presence. It's not about never missing a day. It's about never abandoning the intention. It's the ability to adapt while still staying true to your core. Inconsistency, on the other hand, breeds doubt. It makes people question your sincerity. It makes your love unpredictable. When your actions fluctuate with your emotions, people stop feeling safe with you. They begin to guard themselves. And once someone starts protecting themselves from you, connection starts to die. So if you want to keep something real, love, trust, respect, reputation, protect it with consistency. Show up. Keep your word. Repeat what works. Repair what breaks. And never underestimate the power of small, reliable actions done every day. Consistency is quiet. It doesn't shout for attention. But it earns what shouting never can: credibility. The world listens to consistency more than it listens to promises. People believe what you do, not what you say. When the storms come, and they always do, it's consistency that keeps the ship from sinking. When confusion arises, it's consistency that restores clarity. When doubt creeps in, it's consistency that whispers, "I'm still here." In the end, consistency is love in its most mature form. It's not fireworks, it's candlelight, steady, warm, enduring. It's not the loudest promise, but the one kept silently, daily. It's not a rush of passion. It's the patience to keep choosing the same heart, the same truth, the same discipline every single day. Because in the end, People don't remember how loudly you loved them. They remember how reliably you did. Ego doesn't always roar, it whispers. It disguises itself as pride, self-respect, even confidence. But slowly, silently, it eats away at connection like a hidden termite chewing through the foundation of a house. You don't notice it at first. The walls still stand, the roof still holds. But one day, a single touch, a single argument, and everything collapses. That's how ego destroys relationships. Not with explosions, but with erosion. Ego makes you value victory over peace. It convinces you that being right is more important than being kind. It makes apologies feel like defeat and forgiveness feel like weakness. It blinds you with self-importance until love becomes a competition instead of companionship. You start to keep score, to measure who gives more, who says sorry first, who wins the argument. But in truth, when ego wins, the relationship loses. And here's the irony. Ego often wears the mask of strength. It tells you, don't bow down. Don't look weak. Don't let them think they're above you. But strength isn't stubbornness. Real strength is the ability to bend without breaking, to listen without defending, to admit when you've hurt someone even if you didn't mean to. Ego can't do that because ego fears humility more than it fears loneliness. Ego turns communication into combat. A simple disagreement becomes a battle of dominance. You stop hearing each other, you start waiting for your turn to strike back. You don't speak to heal, you speak to win. And every time you do, something sacred dies, respect fades, trust cracks, love suffocates under the weight of pride. Think of all the relationships that could have survived if just one person had said, "I'm sorry." Not because they were wrong, but because they valued peace more than ego. How many friendships ended not over betrayal, but over silence? Two people waiting for the other to call first, both too proud to take the first step. How many families drifted apart because no one wanted to appear small? Ego has ended more love stories than betrayal ever did. But here's the truth. Humility isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's knowing that lowering your voice doesn't lower your worth. It's understanding that gentleness doesn't mean surrender, it means self-control. Humility is the shield that keeps the Trinity pure. Respect, trust, and love. Without humility, respect turns into superiority, trust turns into manipulation, and love turns into possession. When you carry ego into love, you poison the soil. You start expecting instead of appreciating. You start assuming instead of asking. You start demanding to be understood before you're willing to understand. Ego makes you defend your flaws instead of healing them. It builds walls where bridges should be. It makes you forget that relationships aren't about dominance. They're about harmony. And ego doesn't just destroy how you treat others, it also destroys how you see yourself. It traps you in a constant state of comparison and defense. You start needing validation to feel valuable. You stop learning because admitting you don't know becomes unbearable. You stop growing because growth requires humility, the willingness to say, "I can be better." Ego hates that phrase. There's a reason why the wise stay calm when provoked. They know that ego reacts, but the soul reflects. When someone disrespects you, ego wants revenge. The soul wants peace. When someone disagrees with you, ego shouts. The soul listens. When life humbles you, ego resists. The soul learns. And every time you choose the soul over the ego, you strengthen your relationships, your character, and your peace. But taming the ego isn't easy. It demands awareness, catching yourself when you start to harden, when your tone sharpens, when your pride flares. It's about noticing that moment when you want to say, I don't care, but deep down you do. It's pausing before reacting, asking yourself, do I want to be right or do I want to be understood? That pause, that's where maturity lies. Some people mistake humility for submission. They think letting go means losing. But in truth, the one who lets go first is often the strongest because they understand the cost of holding on to pride. Ego clings to the past. Humility creates the future. Ego says, you owe me. Humility says, we owe each other peace. In love, ego builds distance disguised as dignity. You start saying, I don't need them, when your heart quietly aches for connection. You pretend indifference because vulnerability feels unsafe. But the moment you armor yourself with ego, you block the very thing you crave, intimacy. You can't receive love when you're too busy protecting your image. Let's be honest, everyone has an ego. The problem isn't having it, it's letting it drive. Ego should be a passenger, not the captain. It's useful when it guards your boundaries, but destructive when it governs your heart. The secret is balance, enough ego to stand up for yourself, enough humility to bow when you're wrong. If you want to test your ego, watch how you respond to correction, how you handle being ignored, how you react when someone else shines. Ego flares when it feels unseen, unacknowledged, or outshined, but a secure soul celebrates others without feeling diminished. That's maturity. Finding peace in someone else's light without dimming your own. True connection can only exist when ego steps aside. Because love requires vulnerability, and vulnerability demands humility. You can't truly love someone you need to outshine. You can't build trust with someone you need to prove yourself to. And you can't maintain respect when your pride keeps you from hearing truth. So protect your humility like sacred armor when you feel the urge to prove. Pause. When you feel the need to dominate, breathe. When you're tempted to say, I don't care, remind yourself that indifference is the language of ego, not the expression of strength. The real power lies in gentleness, in understanding, in restraint. Because ego will always whisper, win. But love will always whisper, heal. And when you choose to heal, you don't just save the relationship, you save yourself. At the end of the day, people remember not how proud you were, but how peaceful you made them feel. They remember not your dominance, but your grace. They remember the softness that made them safe, not the sharpness that made them guarded. That's the legacy of humility. It leaves people warmer than it found them. So be mindful. The termite never sleeps. Feed your soul with humility before ego starts feeding on your love. Speak softly when your pride wants to shout. Say sorry when silence feels easier. Choose peace over power and connection over conquest. Because the day you win against the person you love, you've already lost the battle within yourself. Even sacred pillars crack. Forgiveness is how you mend them before they fall. It doesn't erase pain, it restores structure. Without forgiveness, bitterness poisons what love was meant to heal. Every relationship, no matter how strong, will eventually face disappointment. Someone will say the wrong thing. Someone will fail to show up. Someone will hurt you, not because they stopped caring, but because they're human. And in those moments, forgiveness becomes the quiet miracle that saves what pride would destroy. Forgiveness isn't about pretending the wound never happened. It's about choosing not to let it define the future. It's not weakness, it's strength in its purest, most invisible form. Because when you forgive, you choose growth over grievance, peace over poison, freedom over the chains of resentment. You choose to rebuild the bridge instead of burning it, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. The truth is, forgiveness doesn't start with the other person. It starts inside you. It's an internal decision to stop reliving the hurt, to stop rehearsing the betrayal in your mind, because the more you replay it, the deeper the wound becomes. Forgiveness is the act of closing that loop, not forgetting, but freeing. It's telling yourself, what happened is real, it hurt, but I will not let it control my tomorrow. Most people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it means reconciliation, that you must go back, that everything must be the same. But forgiveness doesn't always restore relationships. Sometimes it simply restores you. You can forgive someone and still walk away. You can release the anger without reopening the door. Forgiveness is not about proximity, it's about peace. It's not saying, what you did was okay. It's saying, I will no longer let what you did own me. Resentment is a slow poison. It eats at you quietly, through sleepless nights, cold silences, overthinking, and bitterness. It convinces you that holding on gives you power, when in truth it drains it. You think you're punishing the other person, but you're imprisoning yourself. Every moment spent replaying the past is a moment stolen from your peace. Forgiveness is how you take your life back from that thief. Forgiveness also requires courage, the courage to face pain without hiding behind pride. Because sometimes forgiveness isn't about what they did. It's about what you let build inside you afterward. It's about confronting the parts of you that hardened, the walls you built to protect yourself that now keep love out. It's about melting again, even when your heart fears it. That's bravery. That's healing. When you forgive, you reclaim your softness. And softness is not fragility, it's grace. It's the ability to hold empathy in a world that teaches vengeance. It's the quiet power to rise without stepping on anyone. Forgiveness gives you back your emotional freedom, the ability to love again without dragging the past into every future moment. But let's be honest, forgiveness takes time. It's not instant. It's not a switch you flip. Some wounds go deep. They need silence, distance, and self-reflection. Forgiveness is a process, a gradual untying of knots, a softening of the heart's defenses. One day you wake up, and the thought of them doesn't hurt anymore. Not because the pain never existed, but because peace finally outweighed it. True forgiveness also means taking responsibility for your part in the pain, not in a way that blames yourself, but in a way that frees you from victimhood. It's about asking, what did I learn? What patterns will I no longer repeat? Because forgiveness without learning is like repairing a bridge, but leaving the cracks in its foundation. Real healing means understanding the lesson and building wiser next time. Forgiveness doesn't make you naive, it makes you self-aware. It means you've seen the darkness and still choose the light. It means you've understood that life's beauty often hides behind imperfection, that people are flawed and love is messy, but compassion makes it worth the risk. Even in the deepest betrayal, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Memory protects you from repetition, but it also shouldn't be a prison. You can remember with wisdom instead of pain. You can recall the past and feel gratitude for the lessons. rather than anger for the losses. That's when you know forgiveness has taken root. When the memory stops burning and starts teaching. Forgiveness also keeps the Trinity, respect, trust, and love, from collapsing completely. Respect allows space for pain to be acknowledged. Trust can be rebuilt slowly if both hearts are willing, and love, when purified through forgiveness, becomes deeper. Because the truth is, you can't truly know love until you've forgiven. Love that hasn't faced imperfection is still immature. It hasn't been tested by time, ego, or hurt. When you forgive, you give love a chance to evolve. It shifts from a feeling to a choice, from passion to patience. From "I love you because you're perfect" to "I love you even though you're not." That's the highest form of connection. Unconditional understanding. It doesn't mean accepting abuse or repeated disrespect. It means seeing someone's humanity and choosing compassion over hatred. In families, forgiveness can save generations. Parents forgiving their children for rebellion, children forgiving their parents for absence or mistakes, siblings forgiving each other for words spoken in anger. These acts may seem small, but they ripple through time. They heal not just one heart, but an entire lineage. Because forgiveness isn't just emotional, it's spiritual. It releases inherited pain. It breaks cycles. Even in self-forgiveness, the same principle applies. Because sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. The guilt, the regret, the choices you wish you could undo, they haunt you silently. But refusing to forgive yourself doesn't punish the past. It only poisons the present. You cannot rebuild self-respect while hating yourself. You cannot grow while holding yourself hostage. Self-forgiveness is not indulgence. It's maturity. It's saying, I was learning, I made mistakes, but I am still worthy of peace. And here's the secret. Forgiveness doesn't need an apology. You can forgive even when the other person never says sorry. Because forgiveness is your power, not theirs. Waiting for them to ask keeps your healing on hold. Sometimes closure isn't given, it's created. You can bless someone silently and move on with dignity. That is strength few understand. The greatest act of forgiveness is when love and wisdom walk hand in hand. When you can see someone's flaws, acknowledge the hurt, and still choose peace. Not because you've forgotten, but because you've grown. You stop demanding justice from life and start trusting that peace is justice. Forgiveness doesn't rewrite the past, but it reclaims the future. It doesn't fix what's broken, but it makes you whole again. It teaches you that mercy isn't weakness. It's divine. It's how humans touch eternity, how hearts rebuild after storms, how love survives when everything else fades. Because at the end of every story, when pride, pain, and distance have all played their parts, it's forgiveness that decides whether you live with scars or with strength. It's the final repair, the silent one, the sacred one. Love isn't a photograph frozen in its happiest moment. It's a living, breathing force that moves, bends, and reshapes itself with every season of life. The truth is, real relationships don't stay the same. They're meant to grow, to evolve, to become something deeper than what they started as. Because what begins with sparks must learn how to survive the rain. What begins with excitement must mature into endurance. And what begins with a dream must wake up to reality and still choose to stay. Growth is the quiet miracle that keeps two hearts connected, even when the world around them changes. It's what transforms young affection into lifelong companionship. When people talk about love fading, what they often mean is that it stopped evolving. One person grew and the other stayed still. One heart learned forgiveness while the other held onto pride. And slowly, like a plant left in the dark, that connection started to wither, not because it wasn't real, but because it wasn't nurtured. To grow together means learning to love through different versions of the same person. The one you met years ago isn't the same person standing before you today, and neither are you. Life changes us through success, through failure, through pain, through joy. Our fears shift, our priorities evolve, and if your love doesn't stretch to meet those new shapes, the bond starts to feel foreign, like talking to someone you used to know. Respect must evolve first. In the early days, respect might mean admiring someone's charm or talent. But over time, real respect becomes about understanding their scars, their struggles, their limits, and honoring them anyway. You stop trying to fix them, and you start standing beside them. You stop expecting perfection, and you start appreciating effort. That's what mature respect looks like. It grows roots deeper than attraction. It becomes an anchor when the storms come. Then comes trust, the hardest to build and the easiest to lose. In the beginning, trust feels simple. I believe you. But when life tests you, when mistakes are made, when distance grows, when silence feels heavier than words, trust must evolve from innocence into wisdom. It becomes a conscious choice. It's saying, even though I've seen your flaws, I still believe in your heart. That kind of trust doesn't come from blind faith. It's born from shared battles, from honesty, from time. And love, the third pillar, it must evolve most of all. Because love that doesn't grow becomes a memory. It starts with fireworks, but it must learn to live with quiet mornings. It must learn how to survive boredom, routine, and hardship. Love matures when it stops chasing perfection and starts embracing presence. When you no longer say, I love you but I love you still. The kind of love that endures is not the one that stays excited. It's the one that stays committed. Growth also means learning the art of change without fear. Too often, we cling to how things used to be. The way they laughed, the way they looked at us, the way we used to feel. We hold those moments like souvenirs and demand that life should stay that way forever. But growth whispers, let go. Let it breathe. Let it become something new. Because if you don't allow love to change, you'll end up holding onto a ghost. The memory of what once was, instead of the reality of what could still be. Every strong relationship goes through seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. In spring, love blossoms. In summer, it thrives. In autumn, it sheds what no longer serves. And in winter, it tests whether the roots go deep enough to survive the cold. The couples who make it, whether romantic partners, friends, or family, are the ones who understand that winter is not the end, it's the beginning of renewal. They endure the silence, they face the frost, and when warmth returns, they bloom again, stronger, wiser, more grateful. Growth doesn't mean growing apart, it means expanding together. It's not about changing each other, but changing with each other. You learn to evolve as individuals while keeping the thread of connection alive. Sometimes that means learning new ways to communicate. Sometimes it means giving space without losing touch. Sometimes it means facing uncomfortable truths, shedding old habits, forgiving deeper than before. Because every stage of life will ask something new from your relationship. and love must keep answering. You'll know your bond is growing when you stop competing and start complimenting. When you stop needing to win every argument and start listening to understand. When you stop saying you've changed as an accusation and start saying it as a celebration. That's when respect deepens, trust strengthens, and love transforms. Growth also requires humility. You must be willing to admit that you don't know everything about the person you love, that they're still unfolding just like you are. Every day they're becoming someone new, shaped by experience, dreams, and unseen struggles. The beauty lies in discovering them again and again, finding new reasons to stay, new depths to explore. Love that grows doesn't get bored, it gets curious. And yes, sometimes growth means outgrowing each other. Not every bond is meant to last forever. Some are meant to teach you, to awaken you, to prepare you for the next chapter. But even then, if the bond was real, it leaves behind wisdom, not bitterness. Because true growth doesn't destroy love, it transforms it into understanding, into gratitude, into peace. In a world where people give up at the first sign of discomfort, growth is rebellion. It's saying, I choose to stay and work through it. I choose to listen. I choose to rebuild. It's easy to walk away when love feels hard, but it's rare, sacred, and powerful to evolve together. Because when you grow with someone, you don't just share years, you share evolution. You become witnesses to each other's becoming. So if you ever feel distance forming between you and someone you cherish, don't panic. Don't assume it's the end. Ask yourself, are we still growing together or just standing still? The cracks appear when growth stops. The warmth returns when two people lean in again with patience, with humility, with heart. Because love that grows doesn't fear time. It becomes timeless. Respect matures into quiet strength. Trust deepens into unshakable peace. And love, real love, evolves into something beyond words, something that keeps two souls connected, no matter how far life takes them. That's the evolution of connection, not holding on to what was, but walking together toward what's next. Every relationship you will ever have, family, friendship, love, even partnership, breathes through a silent equation: respect, trust, love. Three simple words that seem ordinary when said aloud, yet they carry the weight of everything sacred in the human heart. Most people chase love first. They mistake warmth for stability, passion for permanence, and attention for care. But love alone is not enough. Love without respect becomes blind devotion, sweet at first but suffocating later. Love without trust becomes fear disguised as affection. You cling tighter not because you care more, but because you're afraid to lose. And respect without trust, that's just polite distance. It looks calm on the surface, but underneath lies emptiness, mechanical routine, and the ache of disconnection. That's why the ancients called it a trinity, the sacred three. Each one feeds the others. Each one dies without the others. Think of it like fire. Respect is the wood. It gives the structure. Trust is the air. It allows the flame to breathe. Love is the spark. It gives it life. Remove any one of them, and the fire will burn out. Not instantly, but slowly, painfully, quietly, until you wake up one day and realize the warmth is gone. I've seen that fire go out in many hearts. I've seen fathers who loved deeply but lost their children's respect because they spoke in anger more than understanding. I've seen friends whose laughter once filled rooms, now sitting across tables in silence because honesty was replaced with pride. I've seen lovers who swore eternity, but destroyed trust in one careless night, and then spent years pretending the ashes were still alive. The tragedy of human connection isn't in losing love. It's in watching it fade while both people stand too proud, too hurt, or too afraid to save it. Respect begins it all. It's the language of value. You cannot love what you do not respect. You cannot trust someone you secretly look down on. Respect says, I see you. I acknowledge your worth. Even when I disagree with you, I will not belittle you. It's the foundation, the quiet strength that makes love possible. Without it, every affection is temporary. Then comes trust. It's fragile, but once built, it becomes the invisible armor of every relationship. Trust says, I can rest in your presence. It's not about knowing that someone will never hurt you. It's about believing that if they do, they'll make it right. Trust gives love its courage. It gives respect its soul. It's what allows vulnerability without fear. And love, the final element, is what gives meaning to both. Love is the energy that keeps you showing up even after storms. It softens pride. It rebuilds bridges. Love says, even when I'm tired, I'll try again. It's not blind. It sees every flaw, every wound, every crack, and still chooses to care. But the equation is delicate. Lose respect and trust begins to decay. Lose trust and love turns into effort. Lose love and the other two become empty gestures, polite words without warmth, routine without connection. That's why relationships don't collapse overnight. They crumble one pillar at a time. A missed apology here, a careless word there, a promise broken just once, until one day you're looking at someone you used to know so deeply, and you feel the distance more than the closeness. But the good news, the Trinity can be rebuilt, because these three, respect, trust, love, aren't gifts, they're practices. Respect grows through consistency. Speak gently even when angry. Listen even when it's inconvenient. Value their time, their effort, their voice. Small acts of respect build a fortress of safety over time. Trust rebuilds through honesty. Admit your mistakes quickly. Keep promises quietly. Let your actions speak louder than your apologies. When words and behavior finally match, trust returns like morning light after a long night. And love, it regenerates through intention. It's the everyday decision to show up with care. The little notes, the check-ins, the I'm here moments when no one else is. Love doesn't fade when you keep feeding it attention. It only dies when taken for granted. When you hold all three together, you create something sacred, something few people ever experience. A relationship that's not fragile but forged. One that doesn't depend on constant reassurance because it's rooted in truth. One where two people can argue without destruction, distance without separation, change without fear. Because the true test of connection isn't how perfect it looks when everything's easy. It's how deeply it endures when everything gets hard. Respect keeps your words clean. Trust keeps your heart steady. And love keeps your spirits connected through it all. The Trinity isn't a theory, it's survival. It's what turns affection into commitment, friendship into family, and temporary moments into timeless bonds. Every relationship that lasts, every connection that stands the test of years, obeys this law whether it knows it or not. So guard them like sacred fire. Speak with respect even when your pride wants to shout. Be honest even when lies seem easier. Love even when it feels hard to. Because the people who do build something unbreakable. And when one of you is gone someday, The other will still feel that fire burning quietly inside. A reminder that something sacred once lived here and never truly died. That's the sacred equation. Respect, trust, love, not three separate things, but one divine rhythm that keeps the human heart alive. You see, at the end of it all, it's never about how long you knew someone. It's about what you built together. The words you spoke when they were hurting, the patience you showed when they failed, the honesty you gave when they needed truth, not comfort. Every soul that crosses your path is part of your lesson. Some teach you respect through disagreement. Some teach you trust through betrayal. And some teach you love through loss. But all of them, every one, bring you closer to understanding what connection truly means. Life will test your pillars. There will be moments when respect feels undeserved, when trust feels foolish, when love feels one-sided. You'll be tempted to shut down, to harden, to protect yourself by building walls. But remember, walls may keep out pain, but they also keep out light. Growth requires vulnerability. Healing requires forgiveness. Real strength is not in holding back. It's in staying open even after being hurt. Because every time you choose to respect instead of insult, every time you choose honesty over comfort, every time you choose love when bitterness feels easier, you rise higher. You evolve. You transcend. Respect, trust, and love are not weaknesses. They are proof that you have not let the world make you cold. They are signs that your heart still believes in something eternal. And that's the rarest power in this world, to keep your fire alive in a generation addicted to indifference. So tonight, wherever you are, think about the people in your life. Who have you disrespected in anger? Who have you stopped trusting out of fear? Who have you stopped loving out of pride? Maybe it's time to rebuild one of those pillars. Maybe it's time to start again. Because when these three align, everything feels right. The noise quiets, the chaos softens, and you realize that heaven was never somewhere far away. It was always in the space between two hearts that chose to protect each other. That's where peace lives. That's where life finds its meaning. And that's where love finally becomes eternal.